You've been there, right? You know exactly what the logical, rational thing to do is, but then this wave of emotion just washes over you and pulls you in a completely different direction. A flash of anger, a surge of fear. That's what we're diving into today. That incredible battle between our modern, logical brain and the ancient, powerful biochemistry that can, well, sometimes hijack the whole system.
And you know, this isn't a new idea. Way back in the 17th century, the philosopher Spinoza was onto something huge. He basically argued that our first sense of right and wrong, of good and evil, doesn't come from some high-level, abstract logic. Nope, it comes from our emotions, from that gut feeling of pleasure or pain. For him, our emotions were the original moral compass.
Okay, so if emotions are our compass, what happens in those moments when they feel less like a guide and more like a carjacker, just yanking the wheel and sending us careening off the road of reason? To really get this, we've got to pop the hood and look at the wiring in our brains. Because it turns out, we're all walking around with this dedicated, hardwired security system, a really ancient alarm circuit that's designed for one thing and one thing only: keeping us alive.
I'm talking about that instant knot in your stomach when a car swerves into your lane, or that hot flash of rage when you feel insulted. That's not a bug in your programming, it's a feature. That's your brain's built-in emergency siren starting to blare.
And look, this isn't just some abstract idea happening in your head. This is a physical map. We're talking about real brain regions that are physically wired to your body, creating this incredibly powerful feedback loop that gets you ready to act.
So the first stop on our tour is a little almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. The best way to think of it is as the smoke detector for your brain. It is always scanning for trouble. Could be a lion, could be a frustrating email, could be a dirty look from a coworker. As soon as it sniffs out a potential threat, it pulls the alarm.
So the amygdala pulls the alarm, and that signal gets blasted out to the hypothalamus and the PAG. These are kind of like the brain's emergency dispatch centers. They get the warning call and immediately translate it into a full-body code red alert. You know the feeling. Your heart starts pounding, your muscles tense up. That's the classic fight-or-flight response kicking in.
And here is the most important part. This whole circuit, the acute threat response system, is built for speed, not for accuracy. It is a biological emergency siren designed to get your body moving before your conscious, thinking brain has even had a chance to ask, "Hey, what was that?" Now, it's really easy to look at this system and just write it off as some primitive relic that just gets in our way in the modern world. But what if these so-called irrational emotions have their own kind of wisdom? What if they're actually way smarter than we think?
So is this emergency siren just a big, dumb alarm that goes off at the wrong times? Or is there a hidden genius to it? To figure that out, we're going to look at a classic experiment that perfectly pits our cold, hard logic against our emotional gut.
Okay, so it's called the ultimatum game, and the rules are super simple. Player A gets $10 and has to offer a split to player B. Player B has two choices. They can accept the offer and they both walk away with the money, or they can reject it, and if they do, nobody gets a single cent.
Now, a purely rational person, an economic robot, would accept any offer, right? I mean, even $1 is better than $0. But that's not what people do, not even close. If the offer feels unfair, like a 9-to-1 split, people will reject it almost every time. They'll literally pay money to punish the other person for being unfair. It seems totally irrational, but is.
This is where the science gets really, really cool. When scientists put people in grain scanners while they played this game, they found something amazing. When someone gets an unfair offer, a part of their brain called the anterior insula lights up like a Christmas tree. And this region is basically the hub for bodily awareness. It's literally where your gut feeling of disgust or unfairness gets processed. And the more it lights up, the more likely you are to smash that reject button.
So what does this all mean? It means your body knows what's fair. That feeling of injustice isn't just random noise. It's crucial data. It's a highly evolved signal designed to police fairness and keep us from being taken advantage of. So you see, emotions aren't a bug in the system. They're a critical feature for surviving in a complex social world.
Okay, so we've seen how this alarm system works inside one person's head. But here's a sobering thought. What happens when someone figures out how to trigger that same predictable alarm, not just in one person, but in millions, all at once?
You see, because this emotional system is so ancient, so deeply hardwired, it's also incredibly predictable. And anything that's predictable, well, it can be manipulated, it can be hacked. And suddenly, we're not just talking about individual psychology anymore. We're talking about politics.
This leads us to this really important concept known as a culture of fear. This is what happens when a widespread feeling of anxiety and dread is intentionally cultivated in a society, usually by people in power, to control behavior and achieve a certain outcome.
I mean, listen to this quote from the Nazi leader Hermann Göring. It lays out the playbook with bone-chilling clarity. It's a timeless formula for hijacking that primal threat response system on a massive scale. First, you invent or exaggerate a threat. Then, you attack anyone who questions it.
And these psychological effects are just devastating. A culture of fear works by silencing dissent, by making people feel completely alone in their concerns. It makes you feel like fighting back is pointless, which leads to this deep sense of hopelessness. It's an amygdala hijack, but at the scale of an entire society.
So, knowing how powerful this system is and how it can be used against us, the really crucial question is, what can we do? How do we manage our own internal alarm system? This is where we shift from just reacting to learning how to consciously regulate.
For the longest time, the old advice was basically to just suppress your emotions, to try and build a firewall by brute force. But that's a weak firewall. It cracks under pressure. And, like we saw with the ultimatum game, it forces you to ignore incredibly valuable data. The new, better idea is to build a smart firewall. And that means learning to listen to your emotions as if they're signals, not commands, and then integrating that information to make smarter choices.
And we can actually break this down into 3 really practical steps. Step 1 is just to notice. Recognize the physical signs. My jaw is tight. My heart's racing. Okay, the alarm is going off. Step 2, interpret. Get curious. Instead of acting on the anger, ask, what is this feeling telling me? What important value of mine was just violated? You're not taking orders, you're gathering intel. And then, and only then, comes step 3, choose. Now that you have both the rational data and the emotional data, you can make a wise choice instead of just having a knee-jerk reaction.
You know, this brings us all the way back to where we started, with Spinoza. He really hit the nail on the head. He understood that a thought and a feeling, a mental decision and a bodily appetite, they're not two enemies at war. They're simultaneous. Or, as he put it, they are one and the same thing.
So, our biological sirens, those powerful emotional circuits, they are constantly sending us signals. They're a source of ancient, profound wisdom about our world and our place in it. The only real question is, in the middle of all the chaos and the noise, are we taking the time to actually listen?